Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. When I worked on my project on Valentine's Day, what I did was I took two different patterns and I combined them into one pattern to kind of create my own little fun stuffed animal. But as I was working on both of the patterns, I had problems with both patterns. And while the majority of my problems were with the penis pattern, when it comes to the heart pattern, I still had issues there. And I mean, in some ways, I felt like the heart pattern was not giving me the shape that I wanted, and part of me was like thinking about how I could improve the actual shape that I wanted for the heart. Now, as I kept thinking in my mind about how I would revise this pattern in my head, I realized that I was a very qualified person to do so and to explain how I would do it. So that's what I'm going to do in this video. I'm going to revise the entire heart pattern so I get closer to the shape that I want for the heart. Now, I probably should mention before I get to the whiteboard part, which will be in the next shot, I follow the American Crochet standard abbreviations when I'm writing it out, basically to save my hand and to save space on the whiteboard. And I do tend to mention what I'm writing out as I'm writing it, but in case you're not familiar with the abbreviations, I will leave a link down below. So let's get to revising the heart, shall we? Welcome back to my ceiling, everyone. Now the first step I'm going to have to do in order to alter this heart pattern is to figure out how many stitches I actually end up with. Now this is a little bit more difficult to find than a typical pattern, because a typical pattern usually has more than one row or round, and this pattern only has one round. They try to put too much into the magic ring, and part of my complaint about this pattern is the fact they're putting too much into the magic ring, and they could pull it off a better heart shape if they let it breathe a little bit. So I have to find out how much is actually going into the magic ring. So we're going to start with a tally. Step 1, okay, let's start with the magic ring and then chain 2. So chain 2, that's our first stitch. It's kind of like the unofficial stitch, but it's still taking up space in our magic ring. So let's find out. Next, work double crochet through the magic ring. That's our second one. Then work a total of 6 double crochets through the magic ring. So we're working 6. So that's part of our total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know that didn't make much sense to people, but I promise you I'm still on track here. It says keep the magic ring loose while you work the double crochet stitches. Well, it's not going to matter for how I'm going to revamp it. After this, you work 2 chain stitches. Alright, so we don't have to worry about that because that is not in the magic ring. Work a treble crochet through the magic ring. So that's our 8. Chain 2 again, and then work 6 through the ring to form the other half of the heart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then work 2 chain stitches and then a slip stitch. So that is literally all that is in our magic ring. $14 stitches is a lot for a magic ring. Usually that's like right at the sweet spot where what's it called? That's like right at the sweet spot for when you kind of start considering the fact that you might not want to do a magic ring, but instead start making an like chain all the stitches and then connect them into a circle so that way you have a bigger hole, which I understand why they did magic ring. That's part of the beauty of this pattern. You just pull it all together, yeah? So through the course of this pattern, let's look at all the stitches that they ask me to do. So it starts with a chain 2, then 6 double crochet, another chain 2, then a treble crochet, then a chain 2, then 6 double crochet, and from there, as I go back and up and down the pattern, I work a slip stitch. So those are all the stitches that I need to include in the pattern to kind of at least the general pattern that I would include to get like a smaller heart, yeah? So there are a couple different ways I can go with this. Typically, if I'm starting something, I'm going to double crochet. I'm not going to chain 2, I'm going to chain 3. It's closer to the size 3, but I understand why the person's chaining 2. Because they're trying to create that divot part of the heart, yeah? There's a more gradual way to get there. And this is all one row. But if you split it into 2 rows, we actually make room for an instruction that is not possible with the way that the pattern is currently written, in which you can work 2 stitches in the same stitch, which means a lot of these things can go down to 3 when we put it into the pattern. So I can actually get the pattern down with this to only 7 stitches on the magic ring, if I'm just doing the bare minimum. But I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm going to make it a little bit more gradual. Now, I think I can still work this in spiral. I don't necessarily have to. I don't think the pattern was intending it to be worked in spiral because I wasn't even intending it to be worked in rows. I tend to work more in a spiral method of making rows. So if I were to do it, first, I think we can get this heart in 2 rows. Just an extra row, just to give it some breathing room, yeah? So, first we're going to have row 1. And all we're going to have is magic circle, or the magic ring. And with this, because I can go with because I know I can decrease it in half to make room for that instruction, and these parts are not part of the thing, and this is something that's going to have to be added. I can't make this any smaller. That's just going to be 1. I can just put 7 in the magic ring. But I'm just going to do 7 single crochet. And then we can do join. So with this, now we're going to go to row 2. So instead of chaining 2, what I would do, I think, to kind of give it that gradual and more defined here, single crochet and half double crochet in first stitch, two double crochets in next, oh, as my end looks like an R, in next two stitches. Then we can, at this point, it's kind of bursting. I'm debating on how necessary the chain 2 is, but it might be necessary. We'll leave space for the chain 2. Treble, chain 2, 2 double crochets in next 2 stitches, half double crochet and single crochet in last stitch. And then with this, we would have our slip stitch to fasten off. Which, honestly, that would probably be a whole new instruction. I'd probably separate that. But I think that will create a better heart for what I'm, or not necessarily better heart, but more a heart that I'm looking for, you know? Without feeling like I'm trying to squeeze into a pair of skinny jeans. Like, I give myself a chance to breathe, and then I do all the extra fancy stuff. So now, what I gotta do is I gotta try the pattern for myself and see if it actually works. I just finished pattern testing to find that my first revision wasn't it. So, it ended up taking me 5 different revisions to get closer to where I wanted to be. Which, honestly, I mean, you can't just write stuff down, right? You have to test it out. Yeah, it's kind of like revising an essay where they say, like, read your essay out loud to see if it works. Because if you're stumbling over your own words, obviously it's not working out. And that's kind of what I had to do here. I had a little bit of humble pie. But I was successful, which I'm thrilled about. So, just for reference, I remade a heart in following the pattern itself, and I mean, you can kind of tell that it's a heart, but it's not the shape that I wanted it to be. So I tried the pattern that I wrote down on the board. And as you can see, it's even worse. So much worse. Oh my gosh. I did not like these holes here. If this was a granny square, those holes would be acceptable. But this is not a granny square. And it's even flatter on top. So when I redid the next one, I got rid of the 2 chains in between the treble. And I like that look a lot better. It got a lot closer. But as you can see, it's totally, there is no bump. I somehow completely got rid of the bump. And this was the part of the pattern where I realized that if I wanted to create a bump, maybe, like, part of my complaint about this pattern was that it didn't have enough breathing room. So if I'm revising it, I should be adding more breathing room. So here, by putting 7 and then putting stitches in all 7 and then slip stitching on the next stitch, of course I was going to seal up the hole. So with this one, I added 8. Instead of doing a magic circle of 7, I added 8, with the one stitch being I was going to add that stitch back in and give it breathing room. But it's still, I mean, even so, the original pattern still had the bump back. Had more of a bump than what I had here. But it was getting closer to like the heart shape that I was looking for. So it was around this point where I decided, you know what? This thing that I thought was a flaw in the pattern, the going straight into double crochet, might not have been a flaw after all, because like if I want to get more of that bump, there needs to be the contrast. So with the next iteration of the pattern, I got rid of the instructions for half double crochet and single crochet. It's like, I'm still doing the magic, I'm still doing it in 2 rows. That part still like much better. It was much easier for me to do. But I decided, thinking like, well, I start with double crochet just so I can get the bump up. And then in the middle, like, why just have the treble crochet only on the bottom? Why not also bring it to the side? So I could leave it to be a little bit more of a point. I did 2 treble crochets. So it's 2 double crochets, 2 treble crochets, 2 double crochets, then a treble crochet for the point, and then repeat it along with like the extra stitch for the slip stitch here. And at this point, it's like, you know, I am curious though. If I did 3 treble crochets here instead of 1, would that get me closer to the shape that I want? So I did it, because like here, probably why the person added the chains into their pattern is the fact that it's kind of tight. It's kind of hard for this to lie flat. And it's like, you know, I can add that there. I don't think that'll help with the gradual like pointiness, but it'll still have that like extra width. So that's what I did here. And this is the shape that I've been looking for. So it's like 2 like 8 in a magic ring, 2 double crochets here, 2 treble crochets here, 2 double crochets, and 3 treble crochets. Then 2 double crochets, 2 treble crochets, 2 double crochets, slip knot. And I'm very happy with how this came out. This is the shape that I was hoping for. And you can see like the hole is a lot smaller because I was able to put less stitches into the magic circle. 14 compared to 8. But I was still able to get like that shape and get to look heart shaped. So for right now, I'm going to include the pattern for this in the description box so you can try it out for yourself. At some point when later on, it may be a link instead. But for right now, I'm just going to put the actual pattern in. Yeah, this is my revamped heart pattern, and I'm thankful for the original pattern providing me a jumping board for which to get off for this, because I wouldn't have done this otherwise if I wasn't frustrated at the other pattern. But I'm also thankful that pattern was there, because that pattern came when I needed it, honestly. Yeah, that is our beautiful heart. Anyway, that was today's entertainment. Have a nice day.